Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Greater Miami Expressway Agency April 2025 Board Meeting. And I would like to call our meeting to order at 9 a.m. I would like to ask Board Member Pages to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Now I will ask our Corporate Board Secretary to conduct a roll call of board members.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Board Member Blanco,
Present.
Board Member Iglesias,
Present.
Board Member Peterman,
Present.
Board Member Rigaud,
Present.
Treasurer Pages,
Present.
Vice Chair Perez, Chair Cancio.
Present.
Vice Chair's joining us via Zoom.
Is she on?
I'm waiting for her to respond,
Okay.
but I hope.
Yes, I'm on.
Oh, there you are.
Can you hear
Thank
me?
you.
Yes, I'm on. Thank you.
Good morning, Vice Chair. Nice to have you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have declaration of voting conflicts. Board members, at this time, please advise if you have any conflicts based on the items on the consent agenda or regular agenda. Madam Secretary, are there any conflicts? Thank you. Now let's move on to our public comment period for the agenda items. If a member of the public wishes to address the board, you will be given 3 minutes to speak. I will now recognize Mr. Garcia to identify those members of the public who have signed up to speak. Mr. Garcia, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not believe anybody has signed up to speak. I'll look into the audience. I'll see if there's anybody that would like to speak. I see nobody, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the meeting minutes from our prior meeting in February. Board members, you've had an opportunity to review the minutes. Is there any discussion or is there a motion for approval of the meeting minutes?
I'll move approval. I'll second.
Any final discussion? Then all in favor say aye, opposed say nay.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We will move on to the regular agenda, and the first item is GMX procurement contract number RFP 25-02, financial auditing services. And I will now recognize Mr. Garcia to introduce the item.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair. The first item on our regular agenda today is the approval by the Board of the agency's Evaluation Committee recommendation for an award of an external financial auditing services contract following a January 2025 request for proposals. I would ask our CFO, Sandra Bridgman, to provide you with an overview of the item for the board's consideration.
Can you hear me? Usually I have trouble with my voice. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and esteemed board members. So as you know, we've had auditors for the past 14 years, and we decided to go in RFP to get new auditors. And we got 6 firms. They were they had strong proposals, all of them. And the evaluation process relied on tabulation of individual scores from 3 members of the selection committee. It was myself and Claudio and Michelle Hicks-Levy. And we individually scored the firms based on their firm's qualification, resources, staffing, capacity, capability. And we all came out and we selected CBIZ as the number 1 strongest candidate for those auditing services. We place a tabulation result for your convenience, and they actually highlight the selection criteria that we used, as I told you: qualifications, experience, and resources, capability, and capacity.
Did the prior auditors also submit
Yes,
proposal?
they did.
And how did they rank?
They ranked second.
Is there any questions?
The terms of the contract are normal terms, 3 original years and 2 single-year renewal. So in total, 5 years, 3 years, and if they do very well, and if their performance is excellent or better, excellent, we will continue with them on a yearly basis after the 3 years, the original 3 years.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So price was not taken into account.
Price was not the consideration in this case. It
And why
was-
would that be? And is that the norm for this kind of a contract?
So we wanted to give the agency the ability to procure based on experience and professionalism and all the criteria that we thought were necessary to make it happen without looking at price. And it so happens that at the end of the day, the price, at the end of the day, the price between the firms was a very narrow margin. So it really would not have made such a big difference.
So they present their price, but it's not evaluated.
Correct. When we told everybody that we were going to score on those criteria, not price, it was said that up front.
Okay. So, and then, so the determination of what the rates are going to be are what they propose, or now you negotiate with them?
What they proposed.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Is CBC a subsidiary of Markham, or is it the other way around?
They merged. They merged and creating this mega company now.
Right, but is Markham the one that acquired CBC, or is CBC, or
CBC
was CBC acquired by Markham? Okay.
And they do have a local presence, right? They have an office
yes.
here. That was one of the
yes.
questions that I had.
Yes.
And when you say it's a small amount in fees, how much?
Less than $10,000.
Any other questions? Okay.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? Hearing none, the motion passes. The second item on the regular agenda is GMX Procurement Contract RFQ 25-05, miscellaneous construction engineering and inspection services. Approval of the evaluation committee's recommendations to select and award a contract to the 3 highest ranked proposers. I will now recognize Mr. Garcia once again to introduce the item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This next item is a motion to approve the Agency Technical Evaluation Committee's recommendation to select and enter into a contract with the 3 highest ranked proposers for miscellaneous construction, engineering, and inspection services, all of which are submitted proposals following a December 2024 request for qualifications. I would now ask our interim Chief of Operating Officer, Claudia Diaferia, to provide the board with an overview of the item for your consideration. Claudia?
Good morning, board members. So this item is for CIA inspection services. As you recall, at the last board meeting, the board approved a miscellaneous design service contract where we selected 3 designers to design essentially 14 design projects that will eventually go into construction. This contract is to oversee the construction and engineering services of those contracts. So we are selecting the top 3 firms, and for a max contract of $2 million each, and it's going to be a pool. So we'll distribute the work evenly through the 3 firms based on the design projects as they get completed. So there was 3 TC members, an FDOT representative and 2 GMX representatives. There was 11 firms that put in, and the highest ranked proposer was A Squared Group. The second was Pinnacle Consulting, and the third was E Plus Engineering. All firms that have done work with the agency before and were very well rated and had positive references. So we went through the process, and those are the selected. And the term of the contract is for 3 years, the initial term, with options to extend at our discretion, 2 1-year extensions, again, provided that their performance evaluations are excellent or better. And this contract also allows us to not only do the contracts, to oversee the contracts that were from the miscellaneous design, but it basically a pool that we need should any projects come into the work program that are small, because this would apply under the CCNA rules. We would not be able to use these services for any construction that's above $7.5 million. So each TA here is capped to $750,000.
Are there any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
may.
Recognized, Ms.
Good morning. So just to clarify, Claudio, with respect to availability of the 3 firms that are recommended, we did check with respect to similar type of work or contracts available or already executed with these firms with respect to other agencies like FDOT in the area to make sure that the right folks listed in these proposals are available to work on these projects.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the due diligences that we do during the evaluation process. We call references. In fact, one of the best references that was here was the DOT representative, Jackie Cicada, where she knew exactly which projects they were on. In this case, there was only one of the firms that were in the top 3 that had somewhat of an availability. They were available, but they're currently committed on a job. Now, given the timing that we're looking at from when the miscellaneous contracts are going to roll out to when they would actually start, we didn't see that there would be an issue in terms of availability. So yes, that's standard practice. We do check, and we definitely don't want to be in a situation where they're committed at a DOT job or a county job or anything else, and then they're working here. So
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, you're recognized.
So I understand how this rotating award works with design services, because when you negotiate a contract, you have rates established and so forth. But how does it work for construction contracts when you're rotating between? Who determines the price for each individual project? Do you bid it out internally amongst the 3 that you're asking us to award, or?
no, so it's somewhat similar. So basically what we do is, depending on the job that comes out, we try to internally pick the strong suits of each firm. So, for example, if there's an ITS-heavy construction job, we'll look at the firms and see who has the most qualified ITS inspectors, for example. And then we'll ask them, put together a team for this scope of work. And then they'll present it to us internally, and then we'll negotiate hours and positions. So sometimes we may not agree that you need 4 inspectors on the job. We'll dictate how many inspectors we're looking for, how many project administrators, how many senior project engineers, and from there we'll do the hours based on the duration of the construction.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? So then let's vote on the item. All in favor, say aye.
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 We need to
Oh, I'm sorry.
motion to
Is there a
approve.
motion to approve?
Second.
Those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? Hearing none, the motion passes. The third item on the regular agenda, it's memorandum of understanding with the Florida Department of Transportation for Traffic Management Center co-location. It's an agreement in the amount of $352,790. And I will now recognize Mr. Garcia to introduce the item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This third item on our regular agenda is, as you mentioned, the approval of a memorandum of understanding with the Florida Department of Transportation for the allocation of annual operations and maintenance costs associated with the continued co-location of GMX's Traffic Management Center at the FDOT Sun Guide Center. I will once again ask Claudio Diaferia to provide additional background for the board.
So, board members, this is actually a great item. This shows a lot of partnership between us and the department. As you are aware, we operate our traffic management center co-located in the FDOT Sunshine Building, right next to District 6. And we had an agreement in place that lasted for 10 years, and it's set to expire on June 30th of this year. So this is basically for the renewal of that contract for an additional 10 years, and it would be for $352,000 in totality. But it's paid annually, and it's approved through the operations budget on a yearly basis by the board. The price actually dropped. We were paying roughly $42,000, almost $43,000 a year, and it dropped to $35,000, and that's for 2 reasons. One of them, even though the footprint of the building did not change, our proportionate impact or occupation in the building it reduced actually, because as DOT expanded their stations and more people came in from the DOT side, only slightly more from the GMX side came in. So when you do it proportionally, we went from being occupying 1/5 of the building to occupying 1/8 of the building in terms of how many people are there in the stations. An additional benefit to this as well is that not only do we have our staff there, our operators that dispatch all the road rangers and the risk and disc contracts for the rapid incident response, but we also have the rack space for all of our servers. And as you recall, as part of the modernization project, we will have what we call a warm site there. So all of our servers, should something happen to the servers in this building, we can fully function from the TMC there as well. So it's a dual benefit with this agreement, and I truly believe this is a really good agreement for us.
I think it's great. Great. It's a great amount. So you say we pay about the 35,000 annually,
Well, right now we pay 43.
right?
This
But
one,
we're
this
going
one
to
comes
start
down.
paying. Divide this by
Correct.
10. But when we visited the site of that location, you had mentioned that we were very tight.
Yeah.
That we needed more space. So no luck in getting more space.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a balance with DOT. Obviously, they have many more roads than us and many more cameras. So we have currently 3 operators on the actual floor of the TMC, and then we have 1 dedicated office for our supervisor. But I'm not sure how much more space we can have unless we grow our system. Now, I will say that we did an analysis. There's a project that will be coming our way that's going to install cameras and fill all the blind spots that are currently in the system right now. And the 3 operators will be able to handle it at their current stations. So we don't anticipate, unless another project comes online that brings in a lot more lane miles. For now, I think we're doing okay with the space that we have.
And when you say co-location, where's the other location here?
No, co-located meaning at that building.
Or you're
particular,
sharing the
We're
location?
sharing the locations at FDOT building. It's shared by 3 parties actually. FHP on the top, DOT
Right,
operators.
right. No,
and us.
I thought that maybe we had like a backup location for those services here.
No, that is something that we're exploring with the IT team about creating, in the case of a hurricane event.
Yes.
That building, believe it or not, is only rated to category 3. So I know DOT has this challenge as well. They would move their center or a makeshift center, a temporary center into their EOC. Our EOC is technically here. So we would probably, in the case of a large event like category 4 or 5, we potentially set something up here in the boardroom.
Is
or
this building
downstairs.
a category 3 or 5?
This is also a 3, I believe.
Yeah.
So the last thing that we could potentially do is the Terramark building downtown. That's a very safe location, but it's very expensive. You're talking about, I think the last time we looked at it is almost $1 million, almost $2 million a year to be able to have rack space in that building and set up and have all the infrastructure come in. Because obviously we would have to be connected via fiber.
I think we should explore other opportunities
Okay.
for the future. I think this co-location is fantastic, great price and everything, but the reality is that if we're unlucky to get a category 4 or 5, we're all going to be in trouble down here. So,
Madam Chair.
yes.
Yeah,
you're
Claudio,
recognized.
did we ever explore? So, first of all, is there an out clause here? For instance, like the chair said, if in 2 or 3 years we find a better location, more secure, better price, or just at least more secure, we have the ability to opt out of this contract?
We do. Either party can opt out of it with the notice provided. I will tell you, it's not so much of money. It's just the actual the cooperation that happens just by sitting next to each other with rangers, because our systems interlap, right? So Palmetto interacts with 836 and all the other roadways. Same thing. So it's very beneficial when, for example, there's an incident on Palmetto. They notify our operators, and then our operators can signal for the Palmetto and vice versa, or I-95 or things like that. So there's a big value, intrinsic value, in sitting in the same place and
Right. I was going to
cooperating.
ask you if there was an operational benefit to being
A
together.
huge operational benefit to being in the same building.
Because-
Also with FHP.
Because I think did we ever explore with the county? I think they have a building that's called the Lightspeed Building out in Doral that they have their 911 center, and they have an enormous amount of extra space in there. Did we ever explore that as a potential, even for both moving FDOT and GMX's operations there?
No, I think DOT has invested quite a bit of funds, and I don't want to speak on behalf of
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, you're recognized.
So, with respect to our own emergency operations, just for clarification purposes, our own structures, even our EOC is only rated for a Category 3 storm. So we would actually have to operate likely from our sister district in District 4 to be able to maintain emergency operations. So from that perspective, the logistics are not as easy. Board Member Peterman is just kind of co-locating with the county in the EOC building. We would have to establish our operations from a DOT property or site. I think the point that Claudio's making with respect to the interconnectivity is a big one. There is a lot of benefit to having the two agencies communicating in real time whenever there's an incident, and then adding FHP to that, layer of operational response is an extreme benefit. So I just asked the board to also consider that as part of the decision.
Of course.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Claudio, can you speak to not just the personnel sharing, not sharing, but communication, but there's also a technology sharing
Yes.
and what that looks like?
Yes.
Because they're all present there.
Yeah, so one, like I mentioned before, it would be our hot site, right? And one of the reasons it's good is because our fiber gets fed directly into the TMC. But we share fibers with DOT all the time. I'm looking at Danny because he's in charge of that. So we share our dark fiber. So the fibers that we're not using, we share with DOT and vice versa. So if there's ever a break or a cut on one of our lines, we can go the other route through the DOT roadways. So if we were to set up, for example, an offsite, we would lose that, right? Because we would have to take our fiber directly to wherever we would be setting up a secondary. That's why this is our secondary, because we already have the backbone coming in here. We have all of our fiber. All the communication comes here, and as a secondary, the DOT TMC building. So yes, there's intrinsic technology value of us sharing rack space there and all the fiber that is co-located with FDOT and us.
Okay, thank you.
Claudio, is there a way of strengthening like a portion of this building? Because I remember a year or two ago that we had water intrusion that was
We did.
really bad right here, and it wasn't a hurricane. So is there a way that we could make a portion of this building, like create some sort of a bunker?
Yes, so one of the backup plans is, as part of this agreement, we're setting up storage at the TMC. So everything currently right now gets backed up at 9:24, I want to say, at midnight. But this is going to provide an extra layer, so everything gets backed up on a much more frequent basis at the TMC. So it's very unlikely that both of the buildings would go down at the same time. But that's the benefit of having that warm site. So should anything happen to this building, we can immediately switch operations to the TMC and vice versa. But yes, we can look at. We're looking at potentially sealing the server room, because what happened in that incident was there was water that came in and ultimately seeped through the concrete in the server room. But it's a big feat, because we would make sure that we can't impact any of the servers, because obviously that's all the total collection equipment that's there. But yes, we are looking at potentially sealing the concrete in the server room to basically seal it off as a bunker.
Yeah, and I think to our interim executive director, I think that's something that we would like to be looked into, the cost of doing that, but I think it's something important for the agency.
Will do, yep, we'll look into that.
Any further discussions? Was there a motion? Yes, Board Member Blanco.
One more comment to add to that task. I think as part of that due diligence or that exploration, exploring the options of not housing that equipment here should be explored. It's great to have the backup over there, but even possibly not relying on this building to have that, as opposed to having it in a secure data center that's prepared for that kind of environment.
Yes, we'll look into that as well, work with with Claudio and our IT team on that.
So is there a motion to approve this item?
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? Motion passes. The fourth item on the regular agenda is approval of the individual sale of parcel 112, 115A-D, 119, 120, 169A and B, 193, and 216 to proposers with the highest purchase price. I will now recognize Mr. Garcia to introduce the item.
Yes, Madam Chair. The next item in our regular agenda is the board's approval of the individual sale of GMX-owned parcels of real estate to proposers with the highest purchase price, and for the board's authorization to negotiate final terms and enter into commercial sales contracts or vacant sales contracts as applicable with various buyers. GMX staff seeks your authorization to execute contracts, closing documents, and statutory quitclaim deeds conveying these properties in accordance with GMX policy. I would once again ask Claudio Diaferia to provide you with an overview of this agenda item.
So board members, this is a motion to approve the parcels that are listed below. I'm happy to report that we received a bid at or above the appraised value for all the parcels with the exception of the grouping. After this was created, we have received some calls. So that parcel will remain on the market and potentially can come back on the future board meetings. But this motion right in front of you is to approve the sale of these parcels that are there. 3 of these parcels were bid by Miami-Dade Aviation Department, and so that would be parcels 169, 193, and 216. And again, I'm happy to report that all of the offers were at or above the appraised value. As you recall, these are parcels that were purchased for the 112 connector project, which is no longer a feasible project. We've been maintaining these parcels for quite some time, and frankly, we really shouldn't be in the landlord business. They've been quite a headache for us, and we've been paying a substantial amount of money to maintain these parcels. So we believe it's in the best interest of the agency to surplus these parcels.
Are there any questions? Yes. Board Member Pages.
2 questions. One of them is specifically on parcel 196AB, I believe it is, the one next to 112 and the existing aviation, or the largest parcel.
169, yes.
All of the properties are being sold at or above the appraised value and the assessed value.
Correct.
That one is substantially below the assessed value.
Yes.
I understand. I'm in the business, so I understand the difference in the two. Can you address that issue because it is substantially below the assessed
Yeah.
value? It's being sold to a county agency.
Yeah, that one in particular, 169 MB, is a strange parcel. If you look at it, it's kind of really odd shape, and that one over time was a much larger parcel, and so the assessed value is based on the larger original tract of land. Through time, when the Metro Rail, the Orange Line, came through, this agency gave easements and donated some of that land for the construction and maintenance of the Metro Rail. Aside from the fact that there's also a roadway in between, which is 28th Street, that DOT closed off. So that parcel, the original parcel, has been snipped and cut in many ways, and a lot of those easements are not reflected in the assessed value that you might see in the property appraiser's office. But when the assessment was done, all those clips and easements were taken into account.
Right, and we never updated the assessed value because we don't pay taxes,
That's correct.
property taxes, so it wasn't relevant for us to do so. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right, that's fine. The second part of the question is, considering, and I believe there's an agenda item later for the Freedom Park, considering we don't know what the traffic in this area will be from the Freedom Park, can you address the issue that we're selling parcels in the area that we may eventually need for a road or a highway or whatever, and your consideration on that issue?
Yeah, so the parcels that we're selling, we've already deemed that we will not be able to use, and the alignment that's there, a lot has changed when the Metro Rail came in, because it would be very difficult to go either above the Metro Rail or below it it's unfeasible. So we do retain that are not in this list. We have 2 parcels that we're not selling, and for the purpose of potentially creating an on and off ramp at 37th Avenue. So those are not on this list. The ones that are here specifically are ones that we've deemed that there would be no feasible, engineering solution for any sort of mitigation from FFP.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes,
Through the
Board Member
chair.
Rigo.
I know it differs depending on the parcel, but give me a sense of what the maintenance cost was for some of these.
So it depends on whether they have a building or not. So I'll give you an example. Parcels 119 and 120, those are parcels that we used to use as a storage for our maintenance folks when we had an asset maintenance contractor. We went through a 40-year certification on that, and I think in totality we spent probably almost $1 million just getting them to a 40-year certification. Now, we've been collecting rent on some of these, but some of these are quite expensive. I'll give you another example. Grouping A, which is 136, 137, they become dumping grounds. That area, unfortunately, there has a lot of vagrants, and so we are continuously, one, getting folks to clean up after them, and two, they become illegal dumping grounds. If you go there right now, one of the parcels has a bunch of old tires and just debris, and it's illegal dumping. We'll go in there, we'll clean it. A month later, it'll be filled again. So there's a continual maintenance, aside from your regular maintenance of mowing the grass, maintaining the fencing, etc., for the parcels that don't have buildings on them.
Thank you.
And I have another question. So you have a certain time to negotiate the contracts. For the contracts, do they have any inspection periods or due diligence periods or any financing contingencies? Or how many days do they have to close? And what happens if they don't proceed? Would you negotiate with the second highest bidder automatically, or would it have to go back for rebid?
So every parcel has a different kind of terms that we got, but I would like to say that most of them are due diligence is 0, so we're selling them as is, and the majority of them are cash offers. So we would be looking to close very quickly, and I know Jason's folks already have a transactional attorney on board, so we would be ready to go. In fact, I think Richard, who's in the audience, I think tomorrow we would actually be kind of solidifying, right? Tomorrow we would be starting to close on some of these or finalizing the
Wait. We haven't even authorized a contract.
No. We have a tentative. Should the board approve, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
Say that again.
Should the board approve the sale of these parcels tomorrow, the contract, the time frame, we could extend it, but the time frame for us to sign the contract is tomorrow. We haven't
To sign the contracts, right?
Sign the contract.
Not to close on the contract.
No. That would take some time. But
No,
to
okay,
sign
no,
the contracts,
that's what I
accepting
heard
their
that you
offer.
do. I heard closing tomorrow. Okay, no.
Sorry, my apologies.
Okay. Was there a motion? No. Yes, board member
Chair,
Diaz, yes.
Claudio, are there any inequitable conditions created by surplusing these parcels and selling them to property owners other than those that are adjacent? In other words, if there's a property owner that comes in and develops these parcels, is there an issue with those adjacent owners having access to and from facilities near these parcels?
No. So 169, which is the one that we were selling in the airport to, the Miami-Dade Aviation Department purchased the adjacent area, and they're going to redevelop that whole for a parking, my understanding. So actually, we would be enhancing for public use that area. 193 is an existing building. It's a warehouse, and they're going to keep it as such, and that's just going to be a standard sale. The other ones are 136, 137, 139, 216 are empty vacant lots. 112 is a building that is a standalone warehouse, and that one actually has a bunch of violations on it, and most likely it'll be torn down and reconstructed. And there's no issues with access because they have access through 6th. 115 is one of the current tenants is the one who is the highest bidder, so they would remain as the current operations are. And 119 and 120 are warehouses that are a series of warehouses. They happen to be the last two in a series, I think, of 8 warehouses. And then the access is through the center, so no, there would be no, we don't have any landlocked parcels, if that's your question.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the individual sale of parcel numbers 112, 115A through D, 119, 120, 169A and B, 193, and 216 to the proposers with the highest purchase price?
Move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? The motion passes. The final item on the regular agenda is approval of an executive director search and approval of search committee. And I will now recognize Mr. Garcia to introduce the item.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. This last item on our regular agenda is for the board to approve a national search for an agency executive director and CEO as provided by our statute. And for the establishment of a search committee by the chair consisting of 3 GMX board members and to appoint 1 such member to serve as chair of the search committee. I would ask the GMX CFO, Sandra Bridgman, our Director of Administration, to provide you with additional information on this agenda item.
Board members, the last time we did this, the option was still on the table to go to do a national search. That's a requirement. But the methodology can be in-house, done in-house, or being done by an outside headhunter. Essentially, when we did it last time, it was quoted at $120,000. So now it's about $130,000. So I just wanted to let you know, you have the option, but these are the current market rates for headhunter. But it can be done in-house, and we'll hit all the major national platforms to get that, and we'll get the applications in.
Thank you. So we have to decide 2 things, whether we're going to do it in-house or we're going to hire a national search firm and appoint
Selection committee.
the search committee. Board Member Blanco, I believe you led the last search committee, and you have quite a bit of experience.
That is correct. That is correct. My initial thoughts are being cost conscious that we should, use the resources that we have internally. I think it worked very well last time. That said, I volunteered to be part of the committee. However, I cannot chair the committee this time. So I'm putting that out there, but I am available. But I definitely believe that we should entertain using internal search for that.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I second that. I think we all have preferences, but the fact that we did the search last time, and there's pretty modern systems so we can get out and get people. I don't believe we need a search firm to try to explain who we are. I think the candidates will come, as did last time. And I was also on the committee last time. I'm happy to volunteer for the committee if the board so desires.
Well, you get the prize to chair the committee. How's that? I appoint you to chair the committee.
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you very much.
I also would just volunteer to serve on the committee.
Thank you very much.
And Madam Chair, I'm looking at our chat here. The Vice Chair says that she would also like to, number 1, be on the committee, and she's voting to do it in-house.
Perfect. So, yes, she is also selected for the committee. Is the committee limited to 3 or 4 board members?
It's 3.
Okay.
What dictates that? I mean, could we set a committee of 4 if we wanted to? I mean, or is it stipulated somewhere that it has to be 3 members?
The bylaws say 3, but you can choose to add if you needed to.
Yeah, I believe it's in our bylaws stipulate that it has to be 3 members of the board.
I have a question.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Remember to go.
So as the interim, how long do we expect, or maybe I should rephrase that, if we do decide to move forward with the internal search, do we have a sense of how long that might take?
If memory serves, last time it was about a 60-day process, I believe, between posting advertisements and getting resumes and going through some initial filtering that internal HR did. I believe it was about 60 days before there was something viable for us to look at and discuss.
But then I think it would be more like 2 board meetings, so we're talking at least 120 days.
Probably,
yes.
yeah. So,
Right.
Enough, sufficient time for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So I would like to reappoint the previous search committee and have you attend the meetings if possible. I don't know with sunshine laws whether, excuse me? Their sunshine meetings,
It's an open meeting, it's a public meeting.
okay. So, yeah, so we'll do that. Board Member Pages will chair the committee, have a vice chair, and Board Member Blanc will be on the committee, and have Board Member Peterman participate in the committee. And it will not be a national search, we're going to do it in-house. So is there a motion to approve that?
Move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. I see Michelle Hedges raising her hand. Is there a comment that you would like to make? Would you like to come to the podium? Just.
Okay, here we go. The comment was in regards to the approval of not doing a national search. We actually are doing a national search. We're just doing it internally.
I'm sorry, that's what we meant. Yes, we're doing a national search conducted in-house, not by a national firm.
I do have a comment. We should start the search tomorrow, right? It doesn't require us to have a selection committee meeting to instruct you to do so, right? We'll start tomorrow. All right, thank you.
So
What
I
about
think
the
that-
establishment of qualifications? That's already
Good.
by statute or by bylaws or?
Great question, great question. We established that at the last search committee. I don't think Peterman may have seen it, so maybe we just share those among the committee.
Absolutely. Yes.
But there are established, very clearly established requirements.
Job description.
For that search, but I
that
mean, do
search.
we need to take an affirmative vote now to use that same set of criteria again so she can advertise?
Well, you haven't seen them.
True.
But,
So then-
but the rest of us have.
Stanley has not either,
Stanley has not.
Yeah.
I don't think I have either.
and neither's Dan.
All right, what do we do here? Because I don't want to wait till the next meeting to start the search.
Go get them.
Yeah.
I would suggest we can just delay this one for a second. Maybe we can table this. She can bring them back to the board.
That's fair.
Yes,
You can vote on
perfect.
them.
That's fair.
Along with
With
the
that?
job
You comfortable with
description.
that? Okay.
Yeah, that's actually what I'm going to bring up is the actual job description.
All right, that's very good. Thank you.
All right, perfect.
Thank you so much. Okay, so that motion is tabled. Next agenda, it's the interim executive director's report. So, Mr. Garcia, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I'm happy to report that over the past month and a half that I've been in this position, no emergencies, no crises. Everything seems to be moving quite well. I have been having regular meetings with our staff internally, and I've also been meeting with some of our transportation partners. We've also met with the leadership from the project across the street, my Freedom Park. The stadium that, every day we look out the window, we see this stadium growing bigger and bigger and making more progress. I know this was from the last board meeting when I walked in. I know this was an interesting issue for the board to discuss and also a very important one. And as such, Claudia Diaferri and I have been reaching out and been in communication with the MFP leadership. The board chair asked us to send a letter, and we did, addressing our concerns as an agency, questions about access to the site, traffic study, the methodology that was used. So these were addressed in the letter. I'm happy to report that we had a meeting with them last week here at GMX, and we made significant progress. I mean, I think we still have a ways to go. We'll have another meeting in the next couple of weeks with our technology people and their engineering staff to sort of focus on the methodology that was used. The FDOT District 6 will be participating. The Miami-Dade County will be participating. But I'm going to let Claudio, at the end of this, in a few minutes, talk about that part because it's a lot of the technology part that he's been leading. So we did have that meeting. I've also met with the TPO Executive Director, Eileen Bouclé, who stopped by for a visit. And we had an interesting conversation. It was more of a, get to know you type of conversation. I've had two monthly meetings with the other toll authorities, so the Turnpike, THIA, and CFX, just to talk about commonalities, issues that we're all facing. Again, happy to report that there's nothing really big at this point. We're sort of monitoring bills that have been filed in Tallahassee. Really, nothing for us to be too concerned with at this point. There's one bill for disabled veterans that we're monitoring. We don't know, at what point in the process that is. I believe it's a House bill, so that might pass. I believe the other ones are not going to go much further. So again, nothing really of note there. Claudio last week also did meet with Miami-Dade County with Jimmy Morales to talk about some of the monies that are owed to GMX, and that was a positive meeting as well. And I'm not going to steal Claudio's thunder. I'm going to let him report on his meeting with Mr. Morales, but I believe that was also a very positive meeting. And I know from a long time ago when I was sitting on the other side of the dais here that this was an issue that was important for the GMX board. Those are the big things. I mean, I do have if the board wants to know, there's a vacancy report that I had pulled. We currently have 5 vacancies in the agency. One of them is, this chair, the executive director, which we discussed. We do have a vacancy for the director of engineering and emergency management. There's currently a vacancy for a procurement agent, an assistant director of engineering, and an operations and maintenance manager. So we'll be working with our HR and administration to look into those positions and filling them as needed. We've also made progress on the plan of transfer agreement, and now I might let our general counsel just touch on that a little bit. Maybe he can mention where we are with the litigation, but I'm tied into that is something that I was interested in was our Moody's report, our rating. So we're currently at an A3, which is a stable rating, and I think that's positive. And again, if maybe Mr. Gonzalez would like to talk a little bit about the conclusion of our litigation and where we stand with the plan of transfer.
Thank you.
Yes,
Mr.
Madam
Gonzalez.
Chair. Several weeks ago, the county withdrew their motion with the trial court for reconsideration of the ruling in our favor, and they withdrew their appeal to the Third District Court of Appeal, as did MDX counsel withdrew their notice of appeal to the Third District. So the litigation is final and concluded in our favor with Judge Walsh's ruling in place. So we expect this to have a very positive impact on the outlook on the bond ratings.
Do you have any comments on the bonds or on the transfer agreement?
We provided our final comments on the plan of transfer agreement, and my partner Paul Huck has worked on that with bond counsel, and I think it's in final form now.
When do you expect that it will be signed?
I believe probably within the next 5 days.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Board Member Peterman.
have all of the accounts controlled by MDX, they've already been transferred to GMX? And if not, well, I don't know, how was MDX paying for their legal counsel if they, if we have control over their accounts? But I wanted to see what the status was there.
Right. On the bank accounts, once we provided word to Bank of America that the appeals were being withdrawn, they scheduled a meeting with staff to work through the process of finalizing the changing of the accounts. Unless anything changed since the last report I got, they were not just changing the names on the accounts. I think they were having to actually set up new accounts. I believe that was always the plan.
That's correct. The idea is to establish new accounts that are already established, and then the next step is to transfer the money. But we still have to work out the mechanics for the bonds portion, what's going to happen to the bonds. And that's the meeting we're going to have following this board meeting with you and Bond Council.
So MDX was paying for their legal counsel from those monies that we have now taken control of?
No. MDX ceased to exist when the statute passed. They never had authority to do anything, or once we received a ruling from the Second Judicial Circuit ordering that we, under statute, have ownership and control of the bank accounts. It was at that point that they relinquished control. They continued to litigate. A non-existent party, in which one judge on the Third District Court of Appeal had recognized during oral argument, how are you even here? The trial court judge had allowed them to appear, but that was entirely their decision, and they were not, whatever funding source was certainly not the responsibility of GMX to pay for adverse counsel that didn't even exist and shouldn't have even been in court at that time. They were paid all the way up to the moment. I guess they were paid up to the last two invoices before we took over the headquarters under court order and took over the bank accounts. So they actually were paid for a period of time.
Their legal counsel.
Their legal counsel did receive legal fees from MDX between the time they ceased to exist and the time the judge in the Second Circuit gave us the order. So we have not made any attempt and don't plan, my understanding is we don't plan to attempt to claw back those funds because MDX was litigate. They were at least under color of some law, some claim, attempting to litigate it at that point. But everything whatever attorney's fees they incurred after that point when we took control of these headquarters, this board took control in the bank accounts, there haven't been any further payments.
So if there's outstanding legal fees for that law firm that was representing this now empty chair, do they have the potential of having a claim against us or our proceeds or our assets for those legal fees?
They could make a claim, but I don't think it would have any legal validity.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Madam Chair, that's really all I have for the, unless you have any questions for me.
No? I think now we all have,
Madam Chair,
yes, Board Member Peterman.
I'm sorry, I'm dragging this meeting out longer than it should be. I have a couple questions, or not necessarily a question, but a request. With regard to the vacancy report, I'd just like to make the request that when key vacancies or hires take place, regardless of how they happen or what the issue is, I don't think that is something that needs to wait for a board meeting for us to be notified. There was a key executive from this agency that was dismissed by our previous executive director at the 11th hour as he had 9 toes out the door. And I found out at the gym working out. That should not be the way that I find that out. So I guess more than a question is my request is that when those key personnel transactions happen, either coming in or going out, that we be notified via email. I believe that that's okay with regard to Sunshine. That he can notify us one-on-one, not as a group. And I just make that request that we be notified just for at the gym is not the right way for me to find out.
Certainly, Mr. Peterman, I agree with you. And any key decision in hiring or the inverse, I would let you know, and the other board members.
I was just going to second that.
Board Member Pages?
Actually, the vacancy report actually raises a couple of issues, or not concerns, but a couple of things. In your role as interim director, have you done a thorough review of the staff of the organization?
I have. I've been in the process of doing that, board member Pages, yes.
Okay. And you haven't come to conclusions on that yet. You'll come back to us on whatever you've done.
Yes, I have not come to any conclusions yet, but if something comes up, I would obviously, yes, let you know as a board.
And I do agree with my fellow board members on major hires, and we may want to define what major hires are, or key hires. I think we need to have at least an update prior to the hire.
Yes, certainly. And to me, the way that I'm interpreting these, key vacancies, I would, number one and number two on this list, obviously, number one, I have no say on. It's the executive director. That's a decision for you. The director of engineering and emergency management, which is the position that Mr. Peterman was referring to, I interpret that as a key vacancy. The procurement agent, that's a staff position. There's also the assistant director of engineering. That's up to you to, we're sort of in a gray area there, so you can tell me. I'd be happy to let you know, obviously, as a courtesy, or if you have input, I can let you know. And then there's the operations and maintenance manager, which I would believe falls into that same category.
As we've discussed, I ran into supposedly the head of Doge for Florida at some meeting that I was at, and I haven't spoken to him directly, but I would like for this agency, if it's okay with the board, obviously, to reach out and see if we can do some type of Doge activity of whatever that means on the agency. I know they're focusing on universities and they're focusing on municipalities, and I don't know if they're going to get to agencies yet, or they even gotten to agencies. I don't know what the process is. District 6 might know. But I think it's something that would hold us. I mean, it would be smart of us to be able to lean on that as we do this process.
I think we all agree on that, but part of what we've done in the last 2 years.
It has been Doge. I agree.
Has been Doge.
I agree.
So
I agree.
I think that we have done a lot in the past 2 years.
100% agree. I echo that. Okay, sorry.
No, I was going to, yes, and I'm on the same page, board member pages, and, I, just so the board knows, I have been in contact with, my other job at my DOT to see what they're doing on the Doge angle, and I've been talking to the folks in Tallahassee sort of to see whatever we can pick and choose from DOT and apply it here at GMX. And so I've been talking to Claudio. We're forming a Doge team. We're looking at the technology part of it as well to see what improvements we can make. And we're going to be meeting next week. It's going to be our first sort of kickoff meeting, looking at tolling, looking at technology, but also looking at staffing and where we are and if there's any need or not. And so we can work. We can continue to Doge, to use the
But,
the chair's
but
words.
from what I've seen, like, we are very lean and mean here. Like, it's amazing what they do with the staff that they have, in my opinion. So when it comes to personnel, I doubt that we have much access, but you never know. I leave that up to you.
You never know.
You never know. You might be surprised. Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Board Member Iglesias.
Just a quick question.
Board Member
And
Blanco.
Some of these are, I consider, very key positions. Are we seeing any effect of not having those filled? Any delays? Any long-term effects of not having them filled?
Well, I'll defer to Claudio Diaferia, who's I think he's heavily I've given him a lot, and he's volunteered to take in a lot of these roles, and everything's sort of falling on him on the engineering side and the tolling operations. I know he has a very good supporting. Danny Fleitas has been spectacular. Our GECs have been helping as well. But if I can allow maybe Claudio to answer that question, because he's really living that dream.
I don't believe anything has been fallen off the wagon per se. I think we continue to move forward. I think in the update I'll give now, I think we've made some good strides. I think I've made some good changes. We've moved some positions around, and we've added some duties. So I think we continue to move forward, and I think we're doing a good job. I think the team's done a phenomenal job, and everybody's supporting and kind of taking up the slack. What has fallen on the wayside is just long hours, I guess. Just more effort on my part and to take over the areas that are vacant currently.
Well, thank you to you and the extended team for picking up some of that slack. Thank you.
And if I may, through the chair, Board Member Blanco, one thing that I'm happy to report to, and again, I don't want to steal Claudio's thunder, is the MRP scores. I know that when I was here back in February, that was another key issue for the board, that there had been a slight decrease in our MRP scores. And even though we are a leaner organization than we were maybe a month or two ago, I'm happy to report that MRP score has increased. I believe we're an 89.5 now. There it is. And so, I think, my kudos to Claudio, who really drilled down on that. That was my first meeting with Claudio. I said, we really need to address this immediately because this is important. And he did. And I'll let him also maybe chime in on that and how we achieved that on the past month.
Yeah, Claudio, we would like to hear from you on that.
So the MRP obviously is a concern of the board, and it was a concern of the agency. Typically, we always hovered around the 90 mark, which is kind of the benchmark that we've been established, and we get compared to in the FTC with the other agencies. In the past, while we were under emergency contracts, our MRP scores dipped into the low 80s, 81, 82, maybe last year was 84. And I don't want to take all the credit because the team really did an excellent job. I think we did some proper training. We met with the team that does the actual inspection, which is an independent, to really educate our team as to what to look for. And then we really kind of went gung-ho about issuing the proper work orders to address these MRP issues. So there's a combination of things that have happened the past 2 months. And I'm really happy to report that we're now at 89.5. And I anticipate that we will be above 90 like we were before in the next 6 months.
That's wonderful.
So I'm really proud of the team for their work because they really have worked hard in the last 2 months. I give credit to the GCB team, EAC for really stepping up, and it's just a team effort. It's 10 folks that are involved in that process, but we've seen a tremendous increase. I mean, 5 points is really significant. And again, there's some other warranty issues that we're addressing with vendors that I think will bring us above that 90% threshold.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Yes.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes,
I just
Board Member
wanted to
Iglesias.
address Board Member Page's comments on the Doge effort and add to the interim executive director's remarks about what FDOT is doing. The department has established a government efficiency task force. That's a statewide task force. It has membership from each district as well as from leadership in central office. And the goal of that task force is not necessarily to look at staff reductions, but to look at efficiencies within the agency. So anything that can be leveraged with respect to technology, innovation, processes that we have established that could be shaved down or streamlined is what that task force is looking at. So that is in the works, in the process. They have a number of ideas they're vetting, but just to give the board a little bit of context as to what the department is doing with respect to these efforts, that's what the focus is. And so I think with respect to the responsibility of this board and potential efficiency efforts at this agency, we need to, I think, take a similar approach when it comes to how efficient the agency is operating and be mindful of perhaps looking at staff reductions because these vacancies are critical to the operation. And so having kind of experienced this here recently at DOT, there's a fine line between looking at being efficient when it comes to staffing and being able to deliver the work product. And so my recommendation or advice would be just to maybe take a look at that from an efficiency perspective.
I appreciate those comments. As an industrial engineer, I want to make sure I make this statement. I'm not suggesting it's all staff-related issues. I mean, clearly there's efficiencies and there's leveraging of technology that may have been around 10 years ago that is today. So there's a number of things we can look at, and that's what we should be looking at. But I appreciate your comments, and that's exactly right.
So are we going to create a committee? Do you and Claudio have created a task force?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Who's involved?
Right now, it's going to be, Claudio's leading the effort. I'm obviously going to be participating in that as well. Danny Fleitas is going to be part of that team. And Sandra Bridgman, our CFO, as well. And yes, we, sort of to continue the conversation, efficiencies is one thing that we're at the top of our list. I know that, a lot of the systems that we're using maybe are outdated. We want to sort of modernize and update and compare notes, like I said, with what DOT is doing, because I want to make sure that, we're using the latest technology here, that we're not falling behind. And, I think that's part of the, we found a couple minor things here and there that we should be updating. And, Claudio's also keyed into a few other things. So next week we'll have our sort of our kickoff meeting, and then we'll take it from there.
That's wonderful. I know that in the past, Claudio has talked about software issues and IT contracts, and and I know that we have saved money along the way, but I don't know if there's more efficiencies that can be found?
Yes,
This
Madam Chair. So we'll-
experiment.
yeah, we'll look at that. Obviously, we'll look at the costs and all, and we're not going, going to go out and spend any money on without, you guys signing off on it if it's, obviously it's over a certain amount. But our intent is to coordinate, and to keep the board notified and informed as to any findings, and we're not going to do anything crazy, unless we run it by you.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
Yeah.
Representative Peterman.
I just think as far as the strength of an organization, this organization or any organization, my city that I run and any organization, is I think we've got to be careful about looking at this as like an ad hoc process, right? As you form it, you do some work, and then you go away. I think any strong organization has this built into their DNA, right? This is what you do day in and day out. You don't have to create a whole nother structure like a special committee. I believe that it's something that everybody within the organization always looks at, to balance that efficiency versus effectiveness. And I think that's where Board Member Iglesias was going a little while ago, is making sure that you can deliver, right? Because you can be so efficient, but then at the end of the day, then you're not accomplishing your mission, right? So if you have a mission, you got to accomplish it in an efficient manner, but you still have to accomplish it. And so I think it's something that we need to build into the DNA of the organization, and any good organization does that, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 minutes ago, and into the future, where that has to be something that's always at the forefront of running a strong organization.
I agree. If I may, board members, and as the CEO indicated, that we really started Dodging before Dodge came. So when we started, we said, okay, we have to take a look at our processes. Technology is part of it, but we have the resources, and we have the people, and we have the processes, and we are taking a look at them, avidly taking a look at them to find the efficiencies that we're talking about. And some of them are qualitative in nature. So it's not that you could put a number and a savings on it, but it's almost like, think about it, every day the sun rises, regardless of what happens, life continues, but it's how well life continues. So our goal is to actually find the processes that make us more efficient and that brings value to the organization. And that's what we've been doing. So Dodging for us is just an extension of what we started already. And the committee is just to make sure that we show to people, okay, we started it and that's where we're going. We are in agreement with the Dodge program itself for efficiencies.
Yes,
Madam Chair.
Board Member Rigo.
Yeah, and and of course the model is probably FDOT, but I would also suggest, because I'm a big fan of best practice and sharing best practice, is to look at the city of Hialeah at a municipal level, because they've done a fairly good job as well in implementing their own Doge practices, and that could be somewhere to look just for sharing best practice and learning from them as well. Just a thought.
Thank you. Board Member Pages.
Yeah, I guess I may have been dancing around the issue, but one of my largest concerns, and probably among all of us, is the contracting process, the bidding process. I'm not sure, and I speak in ignorance right now, I'm not sure how much transparency or how much clarity we have with whom we're dealing with and who they're dealing with. I mean, I don't know if that process has been, at least I don't feel comfortable many times on this process, and I have to just trust. I want to go beyond just trusting. I want to make sure there's a thorough process by which we do our due diligence, and who are we dealing with and who are they dealing with, as best we can. And I think technology today can give us that type of transparency. That to me is more important than anything else that we may have talked to so far, although everything else is important, but that to me is the most important, because that's where the majority of our money goes. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. Yes, I understood, and I agree.
All right.
So we would like to task you, as part of your task force, to sort of create a more transparent process so that we know who we're dealing with, whether not only who are the principals, but who are the lobbyists, who are the people that we're talking to, those major contracts.
Yes, Madam Chair, and we'll we'll look into that, and we'll include that in future briefings and in our internal processes as well, just to keep everybody fully informed as to, what's going on.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So, have you completed your report, Mr. Garcia?
I have, Madam Chair. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
I'm sorry, does Claudio have additional comments?
No, I think I just echo the sentiment. We have been doing a lot of efficiencies. There's things that we've been looking at, for example, for the procurement process that you just mentioned. We've typically done everything in writing, so we're looking into doing things digitally, just
Yeah.
very similar to the way DOT
Yeah.
does their submittal of bids. And there, though, you'll be able to see digitally, and board members will have access to that, where they can see who's bidding, their subcontractors, et cetera.
The request for comments were not necessarily on Doge, and that's fine.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I don't want to belabor the point, but we've been going on these two payments from the county for over a year. I know you made comments that it's been positive movements. I would like for the record to have a little bit more detail on that.
Sure.
Not just the fact that it's positive.
Sure,
Could,
so-
could we tie those payments to the contracts for
Yes.
the purchase of the real estate? Well, I
I
would like to
would
get
s-
paid before the closings take place.
Good point.
I believe there's the only three parcels, right? The rest of the parcels are private entities.
Right.
So with the three, we can go back to the county. The county, different than all the other vendors, the other ones might be cash or financed and would be closing in short order if we sign the contract tomorrow. The county is a little bit different because they have their own process. Should we accept the offer tomorrow from them, then they would have to go to their BCC board, their county commission board, to get approval for actual funding of the purchase. And so we'll continue those discussions to make sure that one happens without the other, or one doesn't happen.
Yeah, I
without
think
the
the directive, or perhaps a caveat that we would like to introduce on the approval of those contracts is that that money that has been owed for a really, really long time gets paid so that, they qualify to close on the
So,
properties.
so the discussion that we had, I do believe we're on the right track. I think all the documents in terms of their internal processes were finalized and we went through them. I think it's just a matter of the mayor signing it for it to be put on the next agenda. So we're in short order. I do expect the 8.2 and the 5 to be put in forth. The 3 million is a little bit longer process because it has to go through Miami-Dade Water and Sewer. So now we're not dealing with ISD anymore, we're going to deal directly with the director of Miami-Dade Water and Sewer to resolve that claim.
I'm going to second that position. I think it's the right position for this board to take. I would move that we do not close with the county on any property that we own unless we get paid on at least those two, the 5 million, the 8.5 million.
Understood.
And that's a non-negotiable item.
Yeah,
Understood.
I agree. I think we should take an affirmative vote of this board.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I move that.
And I got a question with regard if we have a motion on the floor.
Of course.
Claudio, for those three properties, do we have backup offers? Did anybody else bid on those properties other than the county
So 193 and 216 do have a backup offer
that are above appraisal?
that are above appraisal both.
Okay.
169 A and B, we know there's an interested party. I think they submitted a bid after it actually closed that was above. So we would have an alternative for all three of those parties.
Yeah, and I say when we deal with the county on this, we draw a line in the sand and said, it's got to be by X date. And then if not, we're moving on to backup offers.
Understood. One of the concerns that we expressed, and I think they agreed, is that we don't want to go through the process of approving, accepting letter, and then it takes months for it to go to the county commission. We don't want to sit on these parcels. So we gave them already a firm date, but I'll reiterate that we will not close unless those funds are paid.
So do we need to revisit the prior motion that approve all the contracts, or?
I don't believe so, no.
No, right,
You
because
can-
we just
you can
approved
motion now as a board
entering
that
into a contract. Okay.
We will take directive if the motion gets passed, that we will not sell those three parcels unless the 8.2 and the 5 million get paid.
Okay, so who,
I'll move that.
I'll second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? No. So the motion passes, so we have a clear motion that we would like to collect that money before closing.
Point taken.
All right. I'm sorry that I'm doing this. I don't mean to, I have one more item. But,
Oh, please, I think it's very important.
Can you, Claudia, can you provide also an item that's been pending? A number of the board members here weren't involved in this process. It occurred when the tragedy occurred in Baltimore, I think it was. Can you provide an update on the 836 Miami River Bridge?
Sure.
Thank you.
So we've been going back and forth with our contractor. So the issue that we're having is that this is the fender system on the Miami River Bridge. The fender system, per all our meetings and agreements that we have with the Coast Guard and the Miami River Commission, they are not allowing us to change the dimensions of it. So it has to be replacement in kind to what's there now. But obviously we need it to be significantly stronger. So we've been going back and forth with the design team on the 83611 project because they've been having a difficulty actually getting to the strength required while still maintaining the size and dimension. At this point, we're pretty much done negotiating with them back and forth. I believe we rejected the last submittal that was submitted last week. So at this point in time, Sergio and I have made an executive decision. We're gonna move on, and there's another vendor that actually we've been talking to that we believe does have a viable design, and we're gonna force the issue. We're gonna force the hand because we were supposed to be already had the design, and we were supposed to go into construction now in summertime. Based on these new developments, I don't think we'll be able to go into construction until probably fall of this year. But we are adamant of it. Contractually, they were always going to do it at the end of the job, so we're still doing it early because we're still around midpoint of the job. So we still want to do it early, but we needed to take different measures, a different direction from what we had been doing because the contractor that they had, the designer, just doesn't seem to be able to come up with a design that meets all the criteria of maintaining the dimensions while still increasing the capacity of it, the strength of it.
So the timing on this now moves to what?
Most likely fall.
The fall.
Because now we're going to have to re-engage a new designer for them to submit a design, and then the procurement of the materials for them to go in to install. The good thing is that they're done with the foundations in that area, so there's no impedance for them to actually go and replace the fender system at this point.
Okay.
Did we talk about the budget workshop?
We did not, but that was sort of something that I put on there. You know, we're going to be having a budget discussion tomorrow. You know, Claudio and the CFO and I, and so I just wanted to let the board know that that's happening now. And then the question was whether or not the board wants us to have a budget workshop with board members going forward, so we can sort of drill into that. I'm not sure if that was done in the past. I believe it was.
It's been done in the past, but last year it was not done. So the question is, our next board meeting is in June. Yeah. At that point, the board will have to either approve the budget that's presented, or we would de facto go to the current year's approval. So the question is to the board whether a special meeting is called next month to go over a budget workshop to discuss. That way, it can be presented in the June meeting and you all.
Oh, I would like a meeting to discuss that in May.
Okay.
So do we need a motion to approve a meeting in May?
Yes.
Move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 It's
Member Pages.
budget only, correct?
Yeah, budget
So
workshop.
there will be
only.
no other additional items?
No items, just
regardless
budget.
of what comes up. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Okay, so now we're going to go revisit the motion that we tabled regarding the search for the executive director CEO. We all have in front of us the position summary, required education experience, essential duties, required knowledge, skills, and abilities. Obviously, some have just seen this for the first time. I don't know if there's anything that they would like to add or change, considering they really haven't had proper time to read it. Is there anything you would like to add, or are you satisfied with?
No, I read it over. I think it's very comprehensive, but broad enough where it won't limit the field of potential candidates. So I think it's good. I'll move to accept it if that's where you're looking for a motion.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would agree. I was looking to see if there was, specifically, there's this bullet item here, ability to work effectively with a wide range of constituencies and elected officials. I think that's really important.
Yes.
And I'm glad that's on there, so, okay.
I agree. I think it's very comprehensive.
Thank you.
Very good. And so,
I'll second.
And I believe we're all in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Hearing none, the motion passes. So the motion that was tabled, I believe, had been approved before for the executive committee search and doing the national search in-house. That passes and stands. So is there any other discussion that anybody would like to have at this time before we close our meeting? I don't know if there's a treasurer's report or if there's any other legal updates or
There is,
anything else.
There is a treasurer's report. Sandra, would you like to just, did you receive in your package
Yes.
they did, right?
Yes, we did.
You wish to just quickly go through that?
Very quickly.
Any items that we may, yeah.
Very quickly, this is great news. This shows how solid and robust our financial situation is. That's basically what it is. We added just two little column, and the reason we did is favorable and unfavorable, because sometimes when you see a red, everybody thinks it's like a
No, I
bad
like
thing.
that, yeah.
So we added that just to make it a little bit more efficient, and then we specified what's in thousands and what's in millions, so to make it easier to read. But basically, it's great news. Financially solid and stable. And as a result of now the litigation being settled, when we finish all the things that we need to do, because this is just one thing, when it's done to the court, we still have to do all we need to do with the banks and so on. So our plan is to go back out to the rating agencies and then request an upgrade.
Perfect.
Because if you look at the narrative that was provided for the score that we got, and all of them said, due to litigation and uncertainty and so on. Therefore, the point is, if this is removed, we feel that we need an upgrade, and we're going to go after that once we settle all of it.
It's great. Great news.
It is. And I'm glad you mentioned the part about going back to the agencies.
Absolutely.
There was two more items on the agenda that we need to address.
Okay.
The MFP update and then the CITT presentation, which we have the executive director of the CITT here.
So,
So if I may, I can give you an update of the MFP.
okay, please.
So I think we've made good strides. After that letter that prompted a series of meetings, Rafael now attended with their leadership, and I think with the District 6 Secretary Iglesias, I think we're going to be in lockstep. Right now, we received the last set of traffic models, and we provided our comments. I think where we are right now is we still have not, even though a lot of the comments have been addressed, there's still some issues with the calibration of the models. So we're going to stop this back and forth, and I think Secretary Iglesias and I have discussed this, and we're very much in the same page that we're going to put all the technical folks together. We're going to stop this back and forth, and they're not going to come out of that room until they figure out a methodology and address the comments so they can have the frank conversations of really what gets needed. Once the traffic models get completed and we're all satisfied, both DOT, us, and the county, and we're all on the same page that the models are representative of the existing traffic, then we can really discuss about solutions of what can actually happen. I can tell you that our coordination with the three agencies has been beneficial. The county, for example, is not allowing for a building permit for the garage to make sure that they're not installing something or building something in the way of a potential solution in the future. So the good news is that I think all three agencies are now a united front, and we will not move forward with any sort of other construction, or they won't be allowed to go into any construction until we come up with some sort of at least tentative plan for the inauguration and for a future connection points. So there's going to be a series of meetings moving forward, and I can report back to the board, but I think we've made a good step forward in this last meeting, and we'll have some progress.
When is the technical meeting?
If I may.
Yes,
So
Councilmember Garcia.
FDOT is taking the lead on actually coordinating that workshop. We've, as Claudio mentioned, we are explicitly refraining from having leadership or non-technical people at that meeting, because what we're trying to do is get results that we can actually dig into from a study that then, informs mitigation strategies for traffic. So we're in the process of coordinating that workshop. We have a couple of tentative holds already on DOT's calendar. We're waiting for GMX to confirm some of those dates along with the county, and then we're working through their development leadership and coordinators to be able to actually schedule that. So as soon as we have that from DOT's perspective, I'm happy to share with GMX, and then the interim executive director can share with the board.
And isn't City of Miami responsible for 37th Avenue?
No.
County.
County.
37th Avenue is county. Okay. So City of Miami is not involved, doesn't have to be involved.
So they're involved from the perspective that it's their property, and they're actually, as part of their overall plan of the site, I believe they're going to be or relocating their administration building onto the site. So from an administration perspective, they're going to have people from the City of Miami there once everything is built out.
But has that information about the City of Miami been incorporated in the traffic studies? Because from what I had heard, the traffic study did not incorporate the size of the operations and number of people from the city at the site that would tremendously impact, the exit on 37th Avenue.
Based on our review, I think that's part of the issue with the study, that the modeling is not truly representative of all of the future trips that would be generated by the build out of the site, along with an underrepresentation of the existing traffic conditions. That is what we'd like to work through at a workshop to be able to, between the consultant, the department, GMX, and the county, agree to those inputs and those outputs to then be able to actually inform how we can best move traffic into and out of this development.
Yes, Board Member Pages.
What stops the City of Miami from, not that they would, but not providing that information now, or saying they don't have the details of that information? And then later saying, oh, well, I'm going to put a building here. What stops them from doing that? Is it not under their own approval process?
So I don't want to speak on behalf of the approval process for development, because I think a lot of that goes back to what the county will approve as part of their building permit process. I think ultimately the collective agencies that are jurisdictional owners of the roadway network surrounding the site have the authority to approve or not approve access. And so from a leverage perspective, I think that's ultimately what it is. They have to address the concerns that the agencies, whether that's the county, GMX, or the department, have with respect to traffic impacts. And ultimately, they're going to have to come to us for access permits to be able to connect to those roadways.
Silly question, but which agency, which organization, or which government structure has formally asked City of Miami for their plans for that property?
We've all asked at one point in time or another. I think we've been getting plans based on what's been proposed with respect to access to each individual roadway around the site.
Right.
So the last time we all got together, they proposed a preliminary layout of access to 14th Street. That access was for an interim and an ultimate condition, but there were concerns with that design. So we've received some preliminary design plans. I think the issue is that we're not, excuse me, at a point where we can review design plans because we don't have a study that informs the plans. And so sequentially, we need to have an understanding of what those traffic numbers are, so that then they can come to us and say, we need a dual left turn lane scenario here with a signal, or we need an additional lane over here, et cetera.
Okay.
So the last thing I wanted to conclude, because I know it's
Yes.
been floating around, is the connection from the MIC, the pedestrian walkway that would go through the GMX parking lot.
Do all board members know that there was a surveyor in our property taking measures?
I'm not sure, but there was.
Yes, I would like, can you please share with the rest of the board about the guy that was trespassing in our property?
There was an engineer that was taking measurements, and we quickly identified him and intercepted him. We quickly were asking, what are you doing? Why are you here, etc. And we found out that they were part of one of the design teams that's doing one of the proposed alternatives. So from our understanding, there's 5 alternatives as to how they would connect. Because as part of the traffic study that we're all reviewing, they're proposing that roughly 25% of all patrons visiting the site are going to use during game day. They're going to use public transit. So obviously they need to get somehow from the MIC to the stadium, and so there's 5 of them. One of them goes through over the Sheraton parking lot. One of them goes through the GMX parking lot towards the front of the building, and others are alternate routes through 21st or a pedestrian bridge only on 21st and 37th Avenue. So what they indicated to us is that they're not there yet. They're still evaluating the 5 options. I know that they've gone to legislation for some contributions of $5 million for that, but that they're still in the development. So basically that engineer was here just kind of taking measurements to see if it would be even a plausible solution. So they still have not formally presented any sort of alternative that they're going to go with.
It's just amazing that they would just come into our property without asking for permission. I think that for me, it's mind-boggling.
And Madam Chair, just during our meeting a week ago today, when we brought the issue of the surveyor or the engineer in our parking lot, it was sort of, oh, don't worry about it. We're not really looking at that right now. Sorry. So I don't know. Clearly, as Claudia mentioned, they mentioned there's 5 alternatives, but I'm not convinced that our parking lot is off the table entirely.
Well, it's on the map. It's on the original plan that goes
Correct.
across our building. I wouldn't be reinforcing the concrete thing for the IT yet. I wouldn't do that. Just because who knows what's going to happen here.
I mean, ultimately, the board and GMX will have to approve any sort of construction or passage through our parking lot. It's FDOT land, so FDOT would also have involvement in the say of whether foundation gets built for a pedestrian walkway. Frankly, I don't know how they're going to maintain offset requirements for building from the parking lot and not affect our entire parking. As we currently stand, based on the amount of people that are working currently at headquarters building, if we wipe out any of the parking there, we would not meet code in terms of how many required parking spaces are required for the amount of people working in this headquarter building.
I'm sorry.
Board Member Peterman.
Is the office building that they are planning to put in there to house their municipal operations, is that going to have its own parking, or is that going to rely on the same parking as the stadium?
So from our understanding, the MFP is divided kind of in 2 areas. There's their portion of it, MFP Park, where there's going to be the commercial with the stadium, with the restaurants, entertainment center, and then this whole eastern section is actually is part of the land, but it's not under it's under their lease, but they can't build or they can't do anything on it. They're just going to do it's like a green field, basically, if you look at the last part. And the City of Miami building is within that area, and it would have its own contained parking lot. Because that was one of the biggest concerns. Obviously, we know from experience that's the building department. That's where everybody goes to get building permits, and the in and outflow of that is tremendous. Now, MFP's stance has been thus far that that's not part of their development. They're not building it. They're not involved in it. They shouldn't have to model it. But we, as agencies, have stood strong that no, the ultimate build out is what's going to affect everything. So it has to be included into the numbers.
Absolutely.
And if I may, Board Member,
Yes.
that building that you referenced will be right behind you. If you turn around, that's where it's going to be located.
So let me ask, I don't know if this is a right forum or not, a crazy idea. Have we ever explored in the conversations with them about the possibility of them building GMX, a brand new building on their footprint with a parking garage, and then us giving them this or selling them this entire property for their walkway?
It has not come up during my tenure, and I don't think it's come up at all.
I think it was a wild idea that was thrown out a couple of years ago, but there was really never anything.
So I guess there's
behind
somebody
it.
else as stupid and crazy as I am.
There was some initial, I guess, conversations many years ago when this very research started, but I don't think it really went anywhere. So maybe.
But it's not so stupid, is it? I mean,
No, I agree. I don't think
if
it's
if they impact any of the property here, they're gonna have to offset it with something. If it's parking spaces over there, if it's an actual new building over, I mean, it's gonna have to be offset because you just can't build over a parking lot and take out the parking. So anyway, but that's further down. We don't even know what they're building first. Let's find out what they're building first, and then we'll figure out what it is that we can or cannot do.
Madam Chair, if I ask.
yes.
as an agency, is there anything that we can say or do to prevent that, even the discussion of a supposed walkway onto our property? Why is that even a line item is what I'm trying to, I mean, who gives them the authority to be able to
No,
say that we want to study putting a walkway across your parking lot?
no, we are ultimately in control. The board is in control of whether that moves forward or not. Obviously, Miami-Dade County would be heavily involved as the MIC is managed by them and controlled by them. And they would stem from the Miami Intermodal Center.
And there's nothing that we can proactively decide on or say or do to quash that, even at the stage that it's in right now?
So during our coordination meetings with DOT and the county, it is something that we've discussed and we'll continue to discuss.
I meant as a
If the
board.
stance as the board is, no matter what the alternatives are, the answer is no, we could relay that message.
Through the chair. This is why your idea is not all that crazy, to be honest with you. So,
Right.
and,
But-
and maybe that could be,
And to some people, money doesn't mean that much,
right. And that could be a stipulation to move forward with that.
Yeah.
If they do decide. Yep.
I mean, at the end of the day, we want to be good neighbors and good citizens. And this is for the benefit of the county and our residents of the county, right? Some of us may, some of us would have preferred not to put a stadium right there next to an airport and major highways and all the connectors. I mean, some of us may not have liked it there, but it's there. So we're going to have to deal with it. I agree. I understand. And I don't believe we're just going to allow them to put a thing right through this room. But I think we need to be open. I think we need to be open to finding solutions. I don't want to just be an obstacle or obstinate because, you weren't. We'll find solutions. But we're not just going to say, everything you say is fine. And I think that's what you guys, and that's what we wanted to get the board to, the staff to, and all the other issues to, is we are very concerned as a board on this issue. Very concerned. 2 or 3 of our highways touch it. There's a major airport next to it, and they're building a stadium next to it. So we are concerned, and we, to this day, don't know what's happening. And I already almost see Messi playing in that stadium. So that's where we are.
And Board Member Pages, if I may, that point, I took the liberty of delivering that message last week, that the board, about the board sentiments based on my, observations, my, what I heard at the last meeting. And so they took that, I made it very clear that that's how the board felt. So, but we will keep, to your point, we don't want to be obstructionist. We want to be, good neighbors, but at the same time, we want to make sure that things are done correctly and that we're included with the department and the other partners in the conversation.
And that is the focus of the department as well. So we're lockstep in that. That's why we want to work with them to try to get some technical information and make some sound decisions on. And we want to be partners. We want to be neighbors. We want to be able to work as a multi-agency conglomerate here, if you will, to help them. But we need to understand what those impacts are so that we can figure out how to minimize impacts to all of the traveling public around the site.
But we cannot dance with them if we're not invited to the party. And I think that was part of the reason that I directed staff to send a letter to show that we're taking a proactive stand, that yes, you got to let us know what's going on, because if not, this is going to be completely built, and they're going to say, oh, by the way, we need access to here, and we need this. And then they would say, well, you're not working with us. No, we want to work with them, but they got to let us know. I mean, in a perfect world, they would have never even started construction if they hadn't the approved traffic studies done. So we're talking about traffic studies like months before this thing is going to be ready. It's just crazy. So I think we need to continue on the course and have those meetings and see what happens next. So I believe we have one more presentation.
Correct. Right. The address.
Thank you very much. Hey.
So
Good.
the Citizen Independent Transportation Trust is making a presentation.
Yes. Good morning.
morning.
First of all, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair in the cloud, board members, thank you for making time for me today. I sense that you want to wrap this thing up, and it is a long presentation, so I'm going to fly through it very fast, and I may skip some things. If you want me to slow down or go back to you, let me know. So Javier Betancourt, Executive Director of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, or CITT. We're a quasi-independent agency of Miami-Dade County. So about 22 years ago, when, if you were here and a voting age at the time, you probably went to your polling place and you saw this on your ballot. And it was a referendum asking the good citizens of Miami-Dade County whether they would tax themselves an extra half penny, go from 6.5% to 7%, to fund a laundry list of transportation improvements under the banner People's Transportation Plan, or PTP. I do want to point out the last sentence in the referendum language also asked the voters to create the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, myself, to oversee the use of those funds, basically act as a watchdog over those funds. Much like today, a lot of mistrust in government. They were concerned about a bait and switch, and so they created our organization to make sure that those funds were spent appropriately. That referendum ultimately passed. PTP started to become implemented, and the CITT was created. So our mission, at the end of the day, we're not DTPW. We're not building, operating, maintaining anything. We're not the TPO. We're not long-term planning. We're not FDOT. But we work with all of our partner agencies. Our specific role is very narrow, and it's to monitor, audit, review, oversee, and investigate the use of the funds and the implementation of the PTP. By the way, those funds are divided roughly 80% to the county and 20% from the very beginning. There was a deal reached with the municipalities that they would get 20%, which is distributed on a pro rata, i.e. by population basis. Our trust, much like yourselves, is composed of a group of volunteers, citizens from every walk of life, and they're appointed by the county mayor, the Miami-Dade League of Cities, and each of the 13 county commissioners. We currently have 3 vacancies, by the way, so if anyone's interested in joining us and being a member of the trust, basically you just have to be a resident of the district that appoints you. You have to be, a good person, no conflicts of interest with the county, and you cannot be running for office or an elected official. So please, if you're interested, please apply on our website, miamidade.gov/CITT. Those vacancies, by the way, are in Chairman Rodriguez's district, Vice Chairman McGee's district, and Commissioner Bermudez's district. So if you live in any one of those, please apply. That group of volunteers, again, much like yourself, is supported by professional staff. We are probably the smallest IE department in the county. We are considered county employees, but we report directly to the trust, and that's part of what makes us independent. I don't report to the mayor. I don't report to the Board of County Commissioners. And our job as staff is to assist the trust in performing its duties. We do project review, financial analysis, strategic and financial planning. We administer the municipal program, community engagement, et cetera. One of the key roles that we perform is auditing the use of the funds by both the county and all of the 34 municipalities that receive the funds on a semi-regular basis. We partner actually with the county's auditor to perform those on our behalf. That is now switching over to the county clerk and comptroller, who now has authority over audits. So we'll be making that official at our upcoming meeting. So enough about us. Let's talk about the money. So a half penny doesn't sound like a lot, but much like collecting, tolls, it adds up. So we're now at about $400 million a year in collections, plus or minus. It all depends, obviously, on sales and on the economy, but thus far, we're doing well. Since its inception, we've collected nearly $5 billion. And as you can see in the pie chart, the bulk of that has been dedicated to Miami-Dade Transit. You have a little over 20% now that goes to the cities because we had three new cities join the county since the referendum. Less than 10%, here it says 7, goes to public works for roadway projects. We have about 8% in reserves for future projects. And I do want to point out that less than 1% is dedicated to our office for oversight over the funds. We're allowed to spend up to 5% according to state statute and county code, but we have an internal policy that limits that to 1%. So the bulk of the funds could be spent on projects, programs, and services that move people. I believe in, I was Doge before Doge was cool, I guess. We believe in being streamlined and efficient. Here's the same financial information kind of over time since its inception. And basically what this tells you is
The sales tax continues to go up year over year, with the exception of crises, right? So the Great Recession and more recently the pandemic. And this is our current year budget. It's roughly the same. The only thing that maybe is notable here is that you see a larger percentage going to transit. As roadway projects are completed, the county isn't adding those to the program. They're really focused on transit, which is where we're furthest behind, right? Typically, people aren't interested in this, but if anyone is, it's probably this group. We have a 40-year pro forma that is an $8 billion program, and every penny going in and every penny coming out is in here in great detail. So I'm not going to go into it, but if you want to geek out on the numbers, this is available on our website. Again, we believe in transparency and accountability. It's why we exist, and so all the information that we receive or that we generate is available on our website for the public to peruse. So enough about the money. Now let's talk about what people really care about, which is what we've done with it. So there were many promises made in 2002. People remember expansion of Metro Rail, right? But that was only one part of a much broader plan, which included giving money to the cities. It included fare free transit for all seniors, regardless of income, what's now known as the Golden Passport, which has now since been extended to Patriot Passport for veterans. Bus service improvements, smaller neighborhood improvement programs like traffic circles and intersection improvements, fare-free Metro Mover, major highway and roadway improvements. So from the very beginning, there were over 40 roadway and highway improvements that were included as part of the plan. And finally, yes, there was a plan to expand Metro Rail, in particular in 2002, to practically every corner of the county. So how has the county and its partners done in these 22 years? There are some successes and some areas where we've obviously fallen short. The municipal transit program from the very beginning has been one of the success stories. The cities, because they're smaller, they're more nimble, have been able to really, move forward a lot of good projects and programs. The cities have to use a minimum of 20% of what they get for transit, and the up to 80% can be spent on other transportation, i.e. roadway projects, traffic calming, bike ped, whatever it may be. At this point, 22 years in, most of the cities, actually all the cities, have some kind of transit program. Most of them are running some kind of fixed route circulator, and what you're seeing increasingly as well is on-demand transit. Many people have heard of Freebie, for instance, which is in many of our communities. That's a vendor. There are other vendors out there. So now the cities are operating both of those, right? Fixed, on-demand, or both. And they've done a really good job of that. In terms of major roadway, highway, and neighborhood improvements, so the bulk of those have at this point been completed. Some are kind of ongoing, and some have been deleted. But as I've said, as these become completed, the county is not necessarily putting more dollars towards these. They really want to focus, and we want to focus on transit. Now, one roadway-related project that we are continuing to invest in is advanced traffic management systems. So that's a fancy term for smart signals, right? Our signals, which are controlled by the county, are fairly antiquated. It's just on an old-fashioned timer, and it's not the most efficient, right? And so by putting in these traffic smart signals and the software to support it, you're able to adapt in real time to differing traffic conditions. So there was a phase one that was completed, and it showed time savings across intersections of anywhere from 10 to 15%, which is significant. And now the county is pursuing the remaining phases. Many transit investments have been made in these past couple of decades. For starters, the county has replaced the entirety of their fleet at this point. All the Metro Mover vehicles were replaced, although they're probably coming due now for another replacement. The Metro Rail vehicles were replaced in the past decade, and most of the county buses have been replaced, increasingly with more sustainable, environmentally friendly technologies such as CNG and increasingly now electric. And we've also invested in park and rides. We've invested in Tri-Rail and Brightline locations for a future Northeast commuter rail, which I'll speak to in a second. And of course, the cities have invested their monies in trolleys and on-demand service. One of the promises was to enhance the bus fleet. And in terms of raw numbers, that really hasn't happened. It started to happen, and then the Great Recession hit, and they basically eliminated those new routes. They weren't serving a lot of people. But what the county has done more recently is taken what they have and made it better, right, through something called the Better Bus Network. So the bus network has been completely redesigned. there were some hiccups and some issues with that. There were some winners and losers, but they're continuing to adapt to make the bus system more efficient and to provide more service on the most popular routes. The one extension of Metro Rail that was completed was just down the road here to the MIC. And this was a project that was funded in large part with half-penny funds, but also with some state contributions, no federal funds. So that's a great service. We wish more people would use it. And certainly with the Miami Freedom Park, we expect a lot more people will use this to get to those activities. So while we completed that, really no other expansion of rapid transit has taken place since the MIC extension. And the county kind of gave up on it for a while because, frankly, they had to get their existing system in a state of good repair before they could even think of expanding. And that's where we have spent, I would say, the bulk of our time and investments in the past 2 decades is getting the current system upgraded so that it is in a state of good repair, so that we can now go and seek additional state and federal funds. So now enter the SMART plan. And I'm sure you're very well aware of this, but for those who may not be, it's the Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit Plan. That map on the left showcases all the different corridors that are being proposed. It is practically the same map that was presented to the voters in 2002 under the PTP. Unlike in 2002, when people were only talking about Metro Rail, however, now we're looking at every potential technology: Metro Rail, Metro Mover, light rail, bus rapid transit, etc. So there are 6 corridors in some stage of planning, design, engineering, or construction. So we have the South Corridor, Beach Corridor, East-West Corridor, Kendall Corridor, Northeast Corridor, and the North Corridor. So the most promising one right now is the South Corridor. It's being built. It was a great partnership, a third local funds, a third state, and a third federal. And the good news is this is slated to be open sometime this summer. This is what they call Gold Standard Bus Rapid Transit, BRT. It's a bus, yes, but it's going to operate and behave very much like a train. You have wonderful stations. They're even air-conditioned, which Metro Rail isn't. You have level boarding. You have prepaid fares. The buses are going to have either preemption or priority through the traffic, through the intersections. So, it's going to save a ton of time. And we look forward to that opening this summer. The Beach Corridor, what used to be known locally as Baylink, is currently proposed to be a Metro Mover extension from downtown Miami to Miami Beach, and then also another leg up towards the design district. That is still in PD&E. I know that the county and the state are going through some traffic analyses as we speak. There's some controversy with this. Some in Miami Beach have been opposed to the idea, but we think that the residents of Miami Beach overwhelmingly support it. In fact, there's a poll that underscores that. So this makes all the sense in the world. People will use this. It's a great project, and it's been discussed for a long time, so we hope it moves forward. The East-West Corridor is the one that obviously is most relevant to this organization. At one point, that was supposed to be, and the image here demonstrates that was going to be bus rapid transit, BRT, on A36 itself. The county has since taken a step back and is exploring alternatives to that, either using the CSX lines for some kind of commuter rail, or perhaps even doing something like Metro Mover on Flagler Street. But what is key is that is a critical corridor, right? People live out west, they work east, you know it because they're on your highway, and we desperately need some kind of rapid transit solution there. The Kendall Corridor is probably the one that's furthest behind. The community is split on what to do. There really isn't a strong political champion at the county pushing it. FDOT was exploring what they call curbside BRT, but they have since kind of set that aside while they explore a demonstration project on Flagler Street. They hope to take the lessons learned there and apply them here. So this has kind of been postponed until that happens. The next most promising is the Northeast Corridor. So we all know Brightline and the FEC tracks that they run on. And Brightline is a fantastic service, but it's not a service that everyday commuters can use. It's just simply not affordable, and there aren't enough stations in between Aventura and Miami Central and downtown to connect people to their neighborhoods. So the idea is to add a level of commuter rail service on those same tracks, think Tri-Rail, to run a more commuter rail service. And the good news is we have dedicated our local funds. The state, I think, has committed some funds, and the federal government in the previous administration had committed upwards of $400 million. We're still waiting to see if the current administration honors that commitment and if it's ultimately approved by Congress. But we're very optimistic. The tracks are there. All the parties are interested in making it happen. We just need to move it forward. And finally, the North Quarter. So this is probably the most challenging. It's been a long-promised extension of Metrorail up 27th Avenue to the Broward County line, serving, among other things, the football stadium, what I still call Joe Robbie. And because it's Metrorail, it is by far the most expensive and the heaviest lift. And the funding isn't there in place for it. This one's going to require a hefty amount of federal participation. We had some hope of that in the previous administration. We're not sure at this point, if we can rely on federal funds for this moving forward. However, I understand that the state continues to study it as part of their PD&E process, so that if and when, there's funding available, we're ready to move. We've also invested, in park and ride facilities throughout the county, including in partnership, I believe, with this organization, the Dolphin Station, the Tamiami Station, and I know that the Dolphin Express runs on 836 and is a great service. We'd love to see more of it. And this I just put up here to make you hungry right before lunch. So we all know that we don't have enough funding to accomplish everything I just talked about. And the old funding formula of a local match, state and federal together, isn't enough anymore. And so we really have to start looking under every rock possible. So the county did step forward and create a TIF district along every quarter that will generate additional funds. Again, still not enough. So, whether it be working with MDX on toll revenue, local option gas tax, whether it's value capture districts or public-private partnerships, we really need to explore every possibility in order to move this program forward. Additional areas of focus of ours, very quickly, first and last mile solutions. Doesn't do you any good to build these very expensive corridors if people can't get to them or from them to their destination. So whether it's those on-demand circulators, whether it's bicycle pedestrian connectivity, we need to connect the stations to the communities. Enhancing county municipal connectivity is important. We don't have one transit system in Miami-Dade, we have like 36, right? We have transit, Tri-Rail, Brightline, and 30-something cities, each doing their own thing. We need to connect those better, both physically and technologically through like a common app, through common fare systems, et cetera. Improving the customer experience. So again, you can build all you want. If you don't maintain it, if it's not clean, if it's not safe, if it's not performing well, people won't use it. So constantly working to improve that customer experience so that people choose to take transit instead of sitting in their cars. And finally, community engagement. The reason I'm here today, and I presented now to over 30 cities and different chambers and community groups, is because I believe strongly that the taxpayers deserve to know where their money has gone. So I'm out here telling this story, good, bad, and indifferent, that people deserve to know. And I've hit practically every city. I haven't gotten to Miami Lakes, sir, so please, if you would include me on a future agenda, I'd love to be there. That's my hometown. Yeah, go Trojans, HMLer here. So finally, I'll leave you with 2 additional slides, the CITT Ambassador Program. So we can't be everywhere. And so we actually enlist the help of the transit riders themselves to be our eyes and ears. So you become a CITT ambassador. We have over 200 already. We hope to have 300. You have access to an app. You provide regular feedback on that app. You get rewarded for that with points. You can exchange those points for rewards, free Uber, free Lyft, discounted transit passes, et cetera. So it's a great program. We encourage, if you're a regular transit rider, to apply to be a CITT ambassador and be part of the solution. And finally, a couple of years ago, I launched a podcast, again, in the effort to inform and engage and educate the community on all of these issues. So it's a podcast that really focuses on mobility and transportation topics and other issues that intersect with them, right? Land use, economic development, whatever the case may be. So I've had a ton of officials, transportation agency heads, electeds, transit riders, you name it. I'd love to have all of you on. So if you're interested, Madam Chair, Mr. Director, members, please, I'd love to have you on the podcast. It's every other Thursday from 9:30 to 10:30, broadcast live out of Miami's community newspapers in South Miami. With that, I will be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt. It was great.
Just a quick comment. I invited Javier through the executive director for this. I think it's important. At the end of the day, our job is to move people. Whether we move them on our roads or we move them through transit or whatever, we move people. And I think as we settled in now, the legal issues are behind, it's important that we understand what everybody else is doing. I see it through TPO. It's an honor to do that, but I want to make sure that we understand it because we have some major decisions coming forward. And we need to figure out, A, how to build it, how to fund it or not fund it or whatever it is, but we also need to understand what other people are doing. and what the impact is, so we see from a broader perspective, not just building a street or building a highway and being done with it. And there's a number of other issues. I mean, for example, air mobility is one that you didn't bring up. I know FDOT is very much involved in air mobility. I went to a meeting, I don't think it came from this meeting, it came from TPO. I was the only elected or appointed official at this FDOT meeting in your office. I think we need to continue to stay engaged with the rest of the community, not that we're not, in figuring out solutions to move people in this county. Everybody complains, because we should, but we're a part of that solution, and we need to work with all of them. And that's why I wanted to make sure we understand that. And by the way, I probably voted against that half penny 22 years ago, and I've always been a critic, but I was open to understanding and hearing what it is that we're doing. I have a number of other questions, but it's 11 o'clock, and I think we're going to try to wrap it up, because I think it's been a long meeting. But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Please reach out to me if you have any additional questions, or if you want me to present to any other groups. Again, I'm out there, a few times a week presenting. So, trying to spread the message. Thank you very much for what you do. Take care.
So moving on now to announcements. Our next scheduled board meeting is June 9th at 9 a.m. However, we plan to have a meeting in May that we need to schedule for the workshop. So, Maria Luisa, if you could just try to find a date that works for most of us. It's always a challenge, I know. Board members, are there any questions, announcements, staff direction, or final comments from board members before we adjourn?
I got something real fast.
Yes, Board Member Peterman.
I don't know how I did it. I'm technologically challenged because I'm an old man, but I gave myself an invite in my calendar for the June 9th meeting, and somehow it gave it to everybody else here. So I deleted you all out. I don't know how I did it. So I apologize. I deleted you. So that's why you're
okay.
going to see the invite and then the cancellation.
It's
But
okay.
it was just meant for myself.
June 9th's a Monday. Is that right? June 9th's a Monday?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Very good. Okay, that's fine. I want to make sure I wasn't, I'm an old man too, so I want to make sure that I wasn't missing that either. Yeah, we do.
It's a Monday, June 9th, but hopefully we'll see each other again in May before that. So,
And just one last comment as it
Sure.
relates to the search committee. I guess I need some guidance here. We'll begin the search tomorrow, or this afternoon, so you get back to your desk.
no pressure.
We'll communicate how that process is going, but I don't anticipate to have another meeting on that until our June 9th meeting. Give time for the search to proceed, and if there's something comes up, we'll come back, and if we need to call a special meeting or anything else, but I think that should suffice. Is that okay with the board?
that
Okay.
sounds great.
Yes.
If I could just clarify, because last time we posted the position for 30 days, there was a closing date. Do you anticipate a 30-day closing date for this, or continue to run the ad until the committee tells me to stop?
I think we can go with a 30-day for now, and then we'll see how that process is going, and if we have sufficient response, then we can cut it off. If not, then we can extend it. But we can do that as we go along the process. That's fine.
Okay, perfect.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. So hearing no additional comments, I adjourn this meeting at 11:03 a.m. Thank you, board members. The meeting's adjourned.